The
Oh, how
fork slips from her
absolutely
fingers and
dreadful.
cracks against porcelain, sharp enough to kill the whole room.
Careful now, I wouldn't want to
Conversation
starve.
dies instantly. Not awkward silence. Planned silence. And if you think this is just a bad dinner, it isn't. Because in the next few minutes, one sentence will force the billionaire's son to choose between his father's empire and the woman they're trying to erase. She bends to retrieve it herself. Her hand trembles slightly as she straightens, fingers closing around the silverware with more care than necessary. She smiles. Too quickly. Too wide. The kind of smile that arrives before dignity can catch up. Across the table, a woman clears her throat. "Oh, don't worry," she says lightly, waving a manicured hand. "These things happen when you're not used to formal dinners." A few people laugh. Not loudly, just enough. The black woman nods, lowering her eyes for a fraction of a second before lifting them again. Her posture stays upright. Her shoulders remain squared, but the muscles along her jaw tighten, the smallest betrayal of control. The dining room glows with warm light, all polished wood and glass surfaces designed to reflect wealth without shouting. Crystal glasses catch the chandelier above, scattering fragments of gold across the tablecloth. Everything here is deliberate, including this. She adjusts her napkin. Someone else speaks, redirecting the conversation. A man to her left leans back in his chair, swirling wine in his glass. Someone tries again, soft cruelty dressed as conversation. "It must be an adjustment," a voice says, smiling like it's kindness. "When life rearranges things." Glasses clink. Approval hums around the table. She laughs again, softer this time, and nods as if she agrees. Her eyes flick briefly toward the door, then return to the table. No one notices except one person. At the head of the table, the billionaire's son looks up. He hasn't been paying attention to the conversation until now. His gaze sharpens, not at the speaker, but at her. At the way her fingers curl slightly under the table. At the way she breathes in through her nose and out through her mouth, controlled, measured, like someone bracing for impact. He recognizes that look. It's the look people get when they realize the ground beneath them isn't neutral, that it's been chosen, prepared, and tilted long before they arrived. She lifts her own glass to match them, steady enough to survive the moment, until her fingers curl under the table, nails pressing into her palm. That's when the billionaire's son finally looks up. Not at the table. At her. At the restraint, controlled breathing posture that refuses to collapse. And he realizes something that chills him. This isn't clumsy. It's coordinated. He scans the table like a ledger, who started it, who fed it, who enjoyed it, and who stayed silent with authority. His father. And in that silence, he realizes neutral is just another form of loyalty. Someone leans closer, lowering their voice just enough to pretend it's kindness. "It's good you're taking all this so well," they say. Not everyone knows how to accept changes in status. Her fingers tighten around the edge of the plate. She doesn't respond immediately. When she does, her voice is calm, steady. "Status," she repeats, tasting the word. "Yes, that does change." A pause. A beat too long. The billionaire's son shifts in his chair. He opens his mouth, then closes it again. Not yet. Not here. Not without knowing how far they plan to go. Someone raises their glass anyway, smiling like the evening is going exactly as planned. Her hand trembles just enough to be seen, and no one looks away. By the time the last spoon scrapes against porcelain, the damage is already done. And the billionaire's son knows it. He sits back, jaw tight, pulse slow but heavy in his ears. He understands now what this dinner is meant to be. Not reconciliation, not civility, a performance. And she is the only one on stage without a script. If you're watching this thinking it's just awkward, it isn't. If you think silence keeps him neutral, it doesn't. Because what happens next doesn't stay at the table. And when the truth finally surfaces, it won't humiliate just one person. The plates are cleared with practiced efficiency, the kind that suggests staff has been instructed not to linger. The dessert spoons disappear. Coffee is offered. Declined. Accepted. Poured anyway. She sits still, spine straight, hands folded now, as if movement itself might invite another remark. The room exhales, subtly pleased with itself. The worst, they think, is over. It isn't. Someone mentions travel. Someone else mentions schools. The conversation drifts, then curves back toward her again, like a tide that knows exactly where to land. You must miss the access, the uncle says, smiling as though he's offering sympathy. The places you used to go. The people. She blinks once. I still go places, she says. Her voice is even. I still know people. Pause follows. A soft one. Dangerous. The woman who cleared her throat earlier leans forward, elbows resting on the table now, posture relaxed, confident. Of course, she says. Just not the same ones. A ripple of laughter moves around the table. It isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It settles into the room like smoke. The billionaire's son watches her jaw tighten again, watches the way she presses her tongue briefly against the inside of her cheek before speaking. He notices how her eyes shine, not with tears, but with restraint. The effort of holding herself together costs her something each second. He shifts in his seat. His father hasn't spoken much. That alone is telling. He sits at the head of the table, hands folded, gaze distant, as if this entire exchange is beneath him, as if nothing happening here has anything to do with him. That, more than anything, makes the son uneasy. Someone asks her what she's doing now. Professionally. The question sounds harmless, curious, almost polite. She answers honestly. The woman across from her hums softly. Oh, she says. That's modest. The word hangs in the air. Modest. Not small. Not insignificant. Modest. As if ambition itself has been politely downsized. She inhales slowly. It's meaningful work, she replies. For you. The woman agrees quickly. Too quickly. That's what matters. The son's fingers curl against the armrest of his chair. He feels heat creep up the back of his neck, a warning sign he hasn't learned to ignore yet. He glances again at his father. Still nothing. No interruption. No correction. Permission, then. And in that moment he understands. This isn't about her feelings. It's about training the room to remember her as less. Another voice cuts in, sharper this time. You always did have different priorities, someone says. Some people just aren't suited for the pressure that comes with legacy. Legacy. The word lands heavier than the rest. She looks down at her hands now. For the first time since the dinner began, her posture changes. Just slightly. The straight line of her spine softens, bends inward by a degree no one else seems to notice. No one except him. The billionaire's son leans forward, elbows on his knees, gaze fixed on the table. His mind runs ahead, connecting pieces he hasn't wanted to touch. The timing of the divorce, the sudden silence, the way she disappeared from events without explanation. He remembers questions he asked then, questions that were answered too quickly. She wanted out, his father had said. She couldn't handle it, someone else had added. She signed, the lawyer had confirmed. Signed. The word echoes now, louder than it did back then. Across the table, she clears her throat. I'm going to step outside for a moment, she says, polite, controlled. If you'll excuse me. The woman beside her smiles brightly. Already? She says. We were just getting to the interesting part. The son looks up sharply. What part is that? He asks. The room stills. It's the first time he's spoken since dessert arrived. Heads turn. His father finally looks at him, expression unreadable. The woman's smile falters just a fraction. Oh, she says lightly. I didn't mean anything by it. The black woman hesitates, standing halfway from her chair now. Her eyes flick to him. Surprise crosses her face, quickly masked. I'm fine, she says quietly, as if reassuring him rather than herself. He nods once, too quickly. She steps away from the table, heels soft against the floor as she walks toward the hallway. No one follows. No one offers to accompany her. Conversation resumes almost immediately after she leaves, lower now, conspiratorial. The son doesn't join in. He watches the doorway she disappeared through, jaw tight, pulse thudding heavier with each passing second. Something is wrong. Something here doesn't add up. The cruelty is too specific. The timing too precise. This isn't casual cruelty. It's rehearsal. Someone leans toward him. She always was sensitive. They say, as if confiding. You remember. He doesn't respond. His father clears his throat at last. Enough, he says mildly. Let's move on. The son turns to him, searching his face. There's no anger there. No discomfort. Only impatience. Move on. As if this is a minor inconvenience. The son pushes back his chair. I need some air, he says. He doesn't wait for permission. The hallway is cooler, quieter. Like the house has a private voice. He finds her by the window, one hand braced against the sill. Controlled breaths. No tears. I'm sorry, he says, for what they did. She gives a small, humorless laugh. They didn't do it, she says. They planned it. He swallows. Back then, did you want to leave? Her expression stills. She looks at the glass like it might answer for her. I didn't get to want anything, she says. His stomach drops. Inside the dining room, laughter swells again. Louder this time. The son turns back toward the door, understanding now that whatever is coming next isn't an accident, and that staying silent won't keep him neutral much longer. Because if he asks the next question out loud, everything changes. And if he doesn't, someone else will make sure she never gets to speak again. The dining room sounds louder when he re-enters. Not because anyone is shouting, but because the laughter has loosened. People are relaxed now, confident. The tension they engineered has done its work. She doesn't follow him back inside. That fact alone sharpens something in his chest. He takes his seat again, slower this time. Someone pours him more wine without asking. He doesn't touch it. So, the uncle says, clapping his hands softly, shall we finally address the elephant in the room? A few heads turn. Someone smiles in anticipation. The divorce? The uncle continues, glancing toward the empty chair. 3 years now. His father finally speaks. She signed the papers. That's the truth. The son's stomach tightens. Signed. You were away, the woman says softly. You missed a lot. What did I miss? He asks. We protected the business, the uncle says. Your father's image. How? Conversations. Legal advice. Incentives. And if she refused? The woman smiles. Everyone signs eventually. Something snaps. The son stands. Chairs scrape the floor. Heads jerk up. His father looks at him now, irritation flickering across his face. Sit down, his father says quietly. No, the son replies. His voice is steady, but his hands shake at his sides. Did she have a lawyer? He asks. A pause. Of course, the uncle says quickly. A very competent one. The son nods once. Did she get to choose them? He asks. Another pause. Longer this time. His father's eyes harden. That's enough, he says. The son looks around the table, one face at a time. Did she get to choose? He repeats. No one answers. The silence stretches until it becomes unbearable. That's what I thought, the son says. He turns toward the doorway. I'm bringing her back in, he says. And we're going to talk about this properly. The woman scoffs. There's nothing to talk about. There is, he replies. Because if there isn't, then someone here has been lying to me for years. His father rises slowly to his feet. You will not do this, he says, voice low, controlled. Dangerous. The son meets his gaze. You should have thought of that before you made her sign, he says. Gasps ripple through the room. The word made lands like a dropped glass. His father's expression changes, just slightly. Enough. That's a serious accusation, he says. I know, the son replies. That's why I'm making it. He turns and walks toward the hallway. Behind him, voices rise all at once. This is inappropriate. You're overreacting. You don't understand. He doesn't stop. He finds her where he left her, still by the window. She straightens when she sees his face. They're talking about you, he says. She exhales slowly. I know. They admitted things, he continues. Not everything, but enough. Her eyes search his. What are you going to do? She asks. He hesitates. This is it. The line he can't uncross. If he brings her back in, he exposes his father, the family, himself. If he doesn't, this dinner becomes the official story. I don't know yet, he says honestly. She nods. That's fair, she says. Just don't pretend you didn't see it. The weight of that lands heavier than any accusation. Inside the dining room, someone laughs again. Sharp, forced. The son looks back at the door. Whatever happens next will not be quiet. And once the truth is spoken aloud, no amount of money will put it back where it came from. He brings her back into the room. Not by the hand. Not protectively. That would turn her into a symbol. A spectacle. He walks beside her instead, half a step behind, letting the room see that she enters by choice. The table goes quiet again. Different this time. The silence now carries expectation and threat. His father remains standing. The others don't follow his lead. They stay seated, watching, calculating. Someone clears their throat. Someone else pretends to adjust a napkin. She stops near her chair but doesn't sit. I hear my divorce is being discussed, she says calmly. No tremor in her voice now. The woman who orchestrated the dinner smiles. It's thinner this time. Only because it keeps coming up, she says. We assumed you'd want closure. I didn't ask for closure, she replies. I asked to eat. A murmur ripples around the table. The son stays silent. He knows better now. If he speaks too early, they'll pivot back to him. This isn't about rescuing her. It's about forcing the truth into the open where it can't be folded neatly away. His father gestures toward her chair. Sit, he says. There's no need for theatrics. She doesn't move. You said I signed, she says, eyes on him. Do you remember what day that was? His father doesn't answer immediately. That's not relevant, he says finally. She nods slowly. It was raining, she continues. The security desk wouldn't let me leave the building without an escort. My phone was taken because it was company property. The woman scoffs. That sounds dramatic. The son feels heat surge behind his eyes. Was there a second draft of the agreement? She asks. His father's jaw tightens. There were revisions, he says. After I refused to sign the first one, she says. Because it erased my name. Silence. Someone shifts uncomfortably in their chair. She turns slightly, addressing the table now, not him. I was told the lawyers worked for both of us, she says. I was told I could take my time. I was told there would be no consequences if I said no. Her eyes flick briefly to the son. Every one of those things was a lie. The room stirs. This isn't polite anymore. This isn't deniable. The woman laughs, too loudly. This is absurd, she says. You were compensated generously. The son steps forward before he can stop himself. Compensated for what? He asks. His father shoots him a warning look. For silence, the woman replies smoothly. For dignity. For peace. The son turns to his father. Is that true? He asks. His father doesn't look away. We avoided a scandal, he says. That benefits everyone. Everyone, the son repeats. He looks at her. She doesn't meet his eyes this time. Did you want the money? He asks quietly. She finally looks at him. I wanted my life, she says. That lands harder than shouting ever could. Someone at the far end of the table stands abruptly. This is inappropriate, they say. This dinner was meant to be civil. The son laughs once. Short. Sharp. No, he says. It was meant to be final. The word hangs there. Final. The woman who planned the evening rises now too. You're choosing her over your family, she says to him. The son's chest tightens. No, he says. I'm choosing not to lie. His father steps closer, lowering his voice. You don't understand what you're risking, he says. The son meets his gaze. I understand exactly, he says. You just didn't think I'd care. The woman at the table leans forward, eyes bright. You're destroying relationships that can't be repaired, she says. The son nods slowly. I know. She turns to the black woman. Are you satisfied now? She asks. You've made your point. The black woman studies her for a long moment. No, she says. I haven't. The room stiffens. There's more, she continues. But if I say it here, you won't be able to pretend this was just a misunderstanding. The son feels his pulse spike. What else? He asks. She hesitates. This is the edge. The line where speaking changes everything. Inside the son's chest, the moral dilemma tightens. Not as philosophy, but as pressure. If she speaks now, his father falls. The company trembles. The family fractures beyond repair. If she doesn't, the dinner becomes history's version. He doesn't tell her to stop. He doesn't tell her to continue. He waits, and that waiting tells her everything. She inhales slowly. I'll say it, she says. But not here. The woman scoffs. You don't get to dictate terms. She turns toward the son. You do, she says quietly. And so do you. The room erupts. Voices overlap. Accusations fly. Someone mentions lawyers. Someone mentions reputation. Someone else mentions consequences. The son feels the floor shift beneath him. Because he knows, whatever she's about to reveal won't just explain the past. It will redefine who his father really is. And once that happens, no one leaves this family intact. They don't sit back down. No one suggests it. The room has shifted from dinner to standoff, and everyone knows it. The chandelier above them feels too bright now, too exposed, as if it's interrogating them along with her. The son moves first. He gestures toward the side corridor that leads away from the dining room. The quieter wing of the house reserved for meetings that aren't meant to be overheard. This way, he says. His father doesn't follow immediately. You're making a mistake, he says calmly, which is worse than shouting. Calm means calculation. Calm means he still believes he can control the outcome. The son stops walking but doesn't turn around. You already made it, he replies. She walks beside him again, posture steady, expression unreadable. Whatever fear she carried earlier has burned away, leaving something colder in its place. Purpose. Behind them, footsteps follow. Not everyone, just enough. The uncle, the woman who planned the dinner, one board member who has gone pale, his father, last. The door closes behind them with a sound that feels final. The smaller room is darker, lined with shelves and framed awards. Milestones of power, influence, legacy. She stands in the center of it all, uninvited, unacknowledged by the walls themselves. The son turns to her. You said there's more, he says. She nods. There is. The woman crosses her arms. You're going to accuse us of things that can't be proven, she says. That's what this is. No, she replies. I'm going to explain why I disappeared. Silence settles again, heavier now. After I signed, she continues, I was escorted out through the service exit. I wasn't allowed to return to the house. I wasn't allowed to collect my belongings. I wasn't allowed to contact anyone connected to the company. She looks at the son. Do you know what that does to a person? She asks. He doesn't answer. He can't. I was told if I spoke to the press, I'd be sued into nothing, she continues. If I spoke to the board, my character would be dismantled. If I spoke to you, she stops. The son's chest tightens. If you spoke to me, what? He asks. She exhales. They said you already knew, she says. And you agreed. The room lurches. That's not true, the son says instantly. She nods. I know that now. He turns slowly toward his father. You told her that? He asks. His father's eyes darken. It was necessary, he says. You were vulnerable, emotional. I protected you. The son laughs. A short, disbelieving sound. You erased her, he says, and called it protection. The uncle steps forward. You're twisting things, he says. She was unstable. We had concerns. Concerns, she repeats. She reaches into her bag. The movement alone sends a ripple of tension through the room. The son's pulse spikes. She pulls out a thin folder. Worn. Creased. I kept copies, she says, because I didn't trust any of you. She slides the folder onto the table. The board member's face drains of color. This evaluation, she says, was used to label me emotionally compromised. The son picks it up, skimming quickly. This isn't signed, he says. It wasn't meant to be, she replies. It was internal. His father doesn't move. You forged this? The son asks. We commissioned it, his father replies. There's a difference. The son's hands shake now. You tried to institutionalize her, he says. Briefly, his father says. To protect the company. The words echo. The woman who planned the dinner speaks again, voice sharp now. She's exaggerating. Nothing happened. That's the point, she says quietly. Something almost did. She turns to the son. They told me if I didn't sign, they'd have me declared unfit, unreliable, dangerous. The son looks at the document again. And you believe them? He asks. I believed they had the power to make it real, she says. No one argues with that. The air feels thinner now, harder to breathe. The son straightens. You lied to me, he says to his father. His father meets his gaze. I managed a crisis, he replies. You'll understand one day. No, the son says. I won't. The board member clears his throat. This discussion is dangerous, he says. For all of us. The son turns to him slowly. You were there, he says. You signed off. The man looks away. The son exhales, sharp and slow. This is it. The moment where he decides whether the truth stays locked in this room or detonates outside it. He looks at her. What happens if this comes out? He asks. She considers him carefully. Everything burns, she says. But it burns honestly. The woman scoffs. You'd ruin us all, she says. For what? Vindication. She shakes her head. For my name, she says. Which you erased. The son closes his eyes briefly. Inside him, the moral dilemma tightens into something final. There is no neutral ground left. Silence would be participation. He opens his eyes. Get your things, he says to her. She frowns slightly. Why? Because you're not leaving this house the way you left it last time, he says. His father stiffens. You will not involve the press, he says. The son meets his gaze. I haven't decided yet, he says. But you don't get to decide anymore. The threat hangs there. Not shouted. Not dramatic. Real. Outside the room, voices drift faintly. Staff, unaware of the fault line opening beneath the house. The son knows this moment won't be framed as bravery. It will be framed as betrayal. And once he takes the next step, there will be no family left to return to. The house feels different once the decision is made. Not louder, not quieter, just alert, as if the walls themselves have shifted from decoration to witnesses. Staff move more carefully now. Voices drop. Doors close a little too softly. Someone has already sensed that something irreversible is unfolding upstairs, even if they don't yet know what shape it will take. She stands near the doorway, coat folded over her arm, waiting. The son watches his father make a call. Short, controlled, no raised voice. That alone tells him everything. Containment mode. You don't have to do this tonight, his father says when the call ends. We can talk in the morning. The son shakes his head. If we wait, he says, you'll bury it. His father's eyes flick briefly toward her. She's already been paid, he says. Generously. Twice. She lets out a slow breath. You paid to erase me, she says. That money never belonged to me. The son steps closer to his father now, lowering his voice. You tried to have her declared unstable, he says. Do you know what that does to someone? His father doesn't answer immediately. It would have passed, he says finally. Everything does. The son feels something cold settle in his chest. That's the problem, he says. You think people do too. The woman who planned the dinner appears in the doorway, expression tight. This is getting out of hand, she says. There are donors downstairs, partners. If this leaks, it already has, the son says. She freezes. What do you mean? She asks. He pulls out his phone. I sent copies, he says. To myself, to counsel, to an independent firm. His father's face changes. You went behind my back, he says. I went in front of you, the son replies. For the first time, the room holds its breath. The father steps back, straightening his jacket, reclaiming his composure. You're making an enemy you can't outrun, he says. The board will choose stability. They always do. The son nods slowly. Then they'll choose without me, he says. That lands. The woman's eyes widen. You'd walk away? She asks. From all of this? The son looks around the room, the awards, the legacy, the polished lie. Yes, he says. I already have. She steps forward then, finally interrupting. If this comes out, she says quietly, they'll say I'm bitter. They'll say I wanted revenge. They'll question everything I say. The son turns to her. I know, he says. And you'll still do it? She asks. Yes, he says. She studies him for a long moment, searching for hesitation. She doesn't find it. Then I'll speak, she says. The words don't sound triumphant. They sound tired, final. His father laughs once. Sharp, humorless. You think truth is enough? He asks. Power decides what survives. The son meets his gaze. Then let it decide without my silence, he says. Footsteps echo in the hallway. Security, legal, containment. The son moves instinctively, positioning himself between them and her. She's leaving with me, he says. His father raises a hand. No one is stopping her, he says. But understand this. Once she steps outside with those accusations, she won't be safe. The threat is calm, almost polite. The son's jaw tightens. She already survived you, he says. That's not the warning you think it is. She exhales slowly. Let them come, she says. I've lived quietly long enough. The son opens the door. Cool air rushes in from outside, carrying the distant sounds of the city. Traffic, life, indifference. They step into it together. Behind them, the house remains lit, immaculate, unchanged. For now, the son knows what comes next won't be a press conference or a dramatic arrest. It will be quieter, slower, more dangerous. Reputation will be questioned. Stories will be rewritten. Allies will vanish overnight. And somewhere in the middle of it, he will find out exactly who he is without the protection of his father's name. He doesn't look back, because the final cost of this choice hasn't arrived yet. And when it does, it won't ask permission. Morning doesn't arrive gently. It arrives in fragments. A vibration against his ribs. The glow of a screen cutting through half-sleep. The city outside already awake and indifferent. Messages stack faster than he can read them. Missed calls. Voicemails he doesn't open. She sits across from him at the small table in the hotel suite, hands wrapped around a mug she hasn't touched. Her eyes are clear. Too clear. The calm of someone who already crossed the worst line and lived. They're moving, she says. I know, he replies. His phone lights again. A notification from counsel. Another from a journalist he hasn't spoken to in years. A third from someone inside the board. Emergency session scheduled. He exhales slowly. They'll try to isolate you first, he says. Then discredit you. She nods. They already have. A headline flashes across his screen. Not her name, not yet. The company's. Careful one. Questions raised about past settlements. Fate. Controlled. Testing the water. He looks up. Are you ready? He asks. She studies him. Really studies him. For what they'll say? She asks. Or for what you'll lose? He doesn't answer immediately. Outside, sirens pass. Somewhere nearby, a door slams. Life continues, unimpressed by lineage. I was ready years ago, she says finally. You weren't. The words don't accuse. They simply land. His phone rings. His father's name fills the screen. He lets it ring. Again. He silences it. The board meets behind glass and steel an hour later. He isn't there. That too is deliberate. Let them speak without him. Let them reveal themselves. By noon, the first article breaks properly. Not polished. Not contained. The kind written by someone who doesn't owe anyone favors. Internal documents suggest coercion in high-profile divorce. Her name appears halfway down. Misspelled. She doesn't correct it. They'll fix that later, she says quietly. Once they can't erase me. By evening, the narrative fractures. Anonymous sources. Leaks. Contradictions. The evaluation letter circulates. The service exit detail. The confiscated phone. His father releases a statement. Measured. Regret without admission. Concern without responsibility. The son reads it once. Then deletes it. When the call finally comes, not from his father but from the board, he answers. You've made your position clear, the voice says. The consequences will be significant. I know, he replies. You will be asked to step down. The voice continues. Immediately. He nods, though they can't see it. Put it in writing, he says. Silence follows. Then a soft, almost disappointed exhale. You understand what you're walking away from, the voice says. He glances at her. Yes, he says. I do. The line goes dead. He doesn't feel relief. Not yet. What he feels is space, raw and unfamiliar. They leave the hotel separately. Not for secrecy. For clarity. Her story is hers. His choice is his. By nightfall, his father's name trends, not globally, but enough. Enough to unsettle donors. Enough to make silence expensive. They meet once more briefly, in a quiet place with no cameras. You didn't have to burn it down, his father says. I didn't, the son replies. I stopped protecting the fire. His father studies him, searching for something. Remorse, doubt, regret. He finds none. This will define you, his father says. The son nods. I hope so, he says. Later, alone. The son watches the city from a balcony that isn't his anymore. The name he carried like armor now feels lighter without it. His phone buzzes one last time. A message from her. They corrected my name. He exhales, something loosening in his chest. This isn't a victory. There are no raised fists. No applause. Only the slow, irreversible settling of truth. If you think this ended at the dinner table, you're wrong. If you think silence is harmless, remember who it protects. And if you're still watching, it's because you already know how this really works. The night deepens. Somewhere behind him, a legacy collapses quietly. Ahead of him, something uncharted waits. Without a title, without protection, without lies. And for the first time, that feels like freedom. Because the truth didn't just expose his father. It exposed the cost of staying loyal to power.